The massive Imperial Command Center hummed with activity as officers moved between holographic displays and control stations. Admiral Ta Jin stood at the center of it all, his decorated uniform reflecting the soft blue glow of the screens surrounding him. His weathered face showed the experience of countless battles, yet what he saw now made him pause. 3 unknown vessels had appeared at the edge of Imperial space, their designs completely foreign to their vast database. The ships were oddly rectangular, lacking the sleek curves and crystalline architecture that marked civilized spacecraft. Their hulls appeared to be made of simple metals, materials the Empire had abandoned centuries ago. "Admiral, the unknown vessels are maintaining position," reported Lieutenant Kang from his monitoring station. "Their energy signatures are unusual. Our sensors are having difficulty getting clear readings." Captain Jai-yun, Ta Jin's trusted second-in-command for the past decade, approached with a data tablet. Her usually confident expression carried a hint of concern. "Sir, initial scans show active power sources we've never encountered before. I recommend we initiate standard first contact protocols." Ta Jin waved his hand dismissively. "Look at their design, Jai-yun. Metal hulls, primitive thrust engines. They're clearly a developing species that's just achieved spaceflight." He enlarged the holographic image, pointing at the vessel's obvious structural weaknesses. Any race still using metallic construction clearly hasn't mastered energy state materials or quantum crystallization. "With respect, sir," Jai-yun persisted, "their power readings don't match their apparent technology level. Something seems off." The Admiral's expression hardened. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had encountered hundreds of emerging civilizations, and the pattern was always the same. New species either accepted Imperial protection and guidance, or they learned harsh lessons about galactic reality. "Send the standard greeting package," he ordered. "Let's see how they respond to a proper display of Imperial might." A slight smile crossed his face as he added, "Deploy the welcome fleet." Throughout the command center, officers began coordinating the movement of warships. The welcome fleet was a standard formation of 20 Imperial cruisers, enough to overwhelm any primitive civilization without appearing overtly hostile. The massive vessels began emerging from hyperspace, their crystalline hulls shimmering with contained energy. Lieutenant Kang suddenly straightened at his station. "Sir, the unknown vessels are transmitting." A message appeared on the main display, text only. "Greetings from Earth. Nice ships you have there. Perhaps we could discuss trade." The casual tone of the message caused several officers to chuckle. Ta Jin's smile widened. These primitives clearly had no idea what they were dealing with. The Empire's smallest cruiser could reduce their entire fleet to atoms in seconds. "Send the standard response," he ordered. "Inform them that all new species must submit to Imperial authority for their own protection and development." As the message was transmitted, Ta Jin turned to Jai-yun. "Prepare the targeting solutions. If they resist, we'll need to teach them their place quickly. It's for their own good, after all." The response came almost immediately. "That's a kind offer, but we'll have to decline. We prefer independence. Sure you understand." Before Ta Jin could respond, Lieutenant Kang called out again, his voice shaking slightly. "Sir, new readings from the Earth vessels." "There, sir, you need to see this." The holographic display suddenly filled with data streams that made no sense. The primitive metal ships were somehow generating energy fields that defied Imperial science. Ta Jin's confidence wavered for the first time as he watched the readings climb to impossible levels. "Sir," Jai-yun said quietly, "I don't think these are primitives at all." Admiral Ta Jin stared at the strange vessels, his earlier arrogance replaced by the first stirrings of doubt. What exactly had the Empire stumbled upon? "Launch probes," he ordered, his voice firm despite his growing unease. "Full spectrum analysis. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with." He paused, then added, "and move the welcome fleet into defensive formation, just in case." As the command center burst into renewed activity, Ta Jin couldn't shake the feeling that the Empire's first contact with Earth might not follow the usual script. Something about these humans and their deceptively simple ships suggested they were far more than they appeared to be. The game was just beginning, and for the first time in centuries, an Imperial Admiral wasn't certain of the outcome. Commander Sunho sat at his pristine desk in the Imperial Communications Center, carefully crafting the Empire's formal submission notice to Earth. As the Empire's chief diplomatic officer, he had written hundreds of these notices, but something about this one felt different. The holographic screen before him displayed the standard template, its elegant script declaring the Empire's absolute authority over all spacefaring civilizations. Sunho added the usual flourishes about imperial benevolence and the benefits of submission, but his mind kept returning to the strange readings from the Earth vessels. "Their technology makes no sense," he muttered, reviewing the sensor data for the 100th time. The metal ships shouldn't be capable of generating such power signatures. It violated every principle of imperial science. Still, orders were orders. He finished the notice with the traditional warning: immediate surrender or face the consequences. The message was transmitted, its quantum-encrypted signal racing across space to the waiting Earth vessels. In the Grand Imperial Command Room, Admiral Ta Jin and his staff waited for Earth's response. The massive chamber, with its towering crystal columns and floating data displays, hummed with quiet conversation. Most officers expected the usual reaction: either immediate submission or terrified pleas for mercy. Hours passed. The delay itself was unusual. Most species responded within minutes, too afraid or too awed to hesitate. "Message incoming," announced the communications officer. Text only, from Captain Hay Newell of the Earth Defense Force. The main display lit up with the response: "We respectfully decline, but would love to discuss trade relations. Perhaps over coffee. We make excellent coffee." The command room erupted in laughter. Officers pointed at the screen, sharing amused glances. Such casual disregard for imperial authority was unprecedented. Admiral Ta Jin didn't laugh. He studied the message, noting its careful wording. No fear, no anger, no desperation. Just polite refusal and an invitation to trade. Either these humans were incredibly foolish, or— "Sir," Captain Jai-yun interrupted his thoughts, "we're detecting energy fluctuations from the Earth ships. They're reconfiguring somehow." The laughter died as officers rushed to their stations. The supposedly primitive metal vessels were changing, their hulls shifting like liquid while maintaining perfect structural integrity. Commander Sunho, who had joined the command staff to witness Earth's response, stepped forward. "Admiral, I believe we should consider their offer of diplomatic relations." "Impossible," Ta Jin snapped. "The Empire does not negotiate with developing worlds. It would undermine everything we stand for." Another message appeared: "We understand your position, but really, violence isn't necessary. We're quite happy to be friendly neighbors. The coffee offer stands." More laughter, but nervous this time. The casual tone felt less amusing as the Earth ships continued their impossible transformation. "Sir," Jai-yun reported, "their power readings are now exceeding our highest theoretical limits. Whatever they're doing, it shouldn't be possible with metallic technology." Sunho watched the proceedings with growing unease. In all his years drafting submission notices, he'd never encountered a species that treated imperial authority with such amusement. "Perhaps," he suggested carefully, "they use the metal hulls for a reason we don't understand." Admiral Ta Jin's face darkened. "Enough. Prepare the fleet for combat operations. We'll show these humans the price of insolence." As orders were relayed and ships moved into attack positions, a final message appeared: "That's disappointing. We were hoping for a more civilized conversation. Please note that we will defend ourselves if necessary. Last chance for coffee." The command room fell silent. Despite their laughter, despite their supposed superiority, every Imperial officer felt a creeping doubt. These humans, with their primitive-looking ships and casual messages, were either complete fools or playing a game the Empire didn't understand. They would soon find out which. Commander Sunho quietly began drafting another message, not a demand for submission this time, but something that might be needed soon. Terms for Imperial surrender. Just in case, the Imperial fleet hung in space like a wall of crystalline death. 50 warships, their hulls gleaming with contained energy, faced the 3 small Earth vessels. The size difference was almost comical. Each Imperial ship dwarfed the human craft by several orders of magnitude. Captain Du Yun stood on the bridge of the lead destroyer, her posture perfect, her uniform immaculate. Years of Imperial training had prepared her for this moment. Target locks confirmed on all 3 vessels, her weapons officer reported. Plasma cannons charged and ready. Such primitive designs, she mused, studying the metallic ships on her display. They don't even have proper energy shielding. The humans' vessels remained motionless, making no attempt to evade or prepare defensive positions. Admiral Ta Jin's voice came through the command channel. Begin the attack. Show them the consequences of defying Imperial authority. Du Yun raised her hand, ready to give the order, when her science officer spoke up. Captain, I'm detecting unusual quantum fluctuations from the Earth ships. The readings are impossible. Nothing is impossible for the Empire, Du Yun replied confidently. Fire all weapons. The space between the fleets lit up as hundreds of plasma bolts streaked toward the Earth vessels. The Imperial crews watched, expecting to see the primitive metal hulls vaporize instantly. Instead, the plasma passed straight through the ships as if they weren't there. Direct hits confirmed, but no damage. The weapons officer's voice cracked with disbelief. The targets appear to be holograms. Du Yun's confidence wavered. Scan for real ships. They must be hiding somewhere. But before her crew could comply, the holographic vessels began to change. The metal hulls rippled like water, geometric patterns flowing across their surfaces. Where there had been simple shapes, complex structures emerged, folding out of seemingly nowhere. New energy signatures detected. The science officer's hands flew across his console. They're generating fields we've never seen before. The metal, it's not just metal. It's some kind of quantum matrix. Admiral Ta Jin's voice cut through the growing chaos. All ships, concentrate fire. Don't let them complete whatever they're doing. The Imperial fleet unleashed its full power. Energy weapons, plasma torpedoes, and quantum disruptors, enough firepower to shatter a planet. Every shot passed harmlessly through the transforming Earth vessels. Message from the humans, the communications officer announced, her voice shaking slightly. The words appeared on every screen in the fleet. Sorry about the deception. We needed to see what you'd do. Ready to talk now. Du Yun watched in horror as sections of her fleet began to flicker and distort. The humans hadn't just been waiting. They'd been analyzing, learning, adapting. The simple metal ships had been a test, and the Empire had failed. Multiple ships reporting system failures, her second-in-command reported. Our quantum cores are being rewritten somehow. The humans are changing the fundamental laws of physics in localized stasis. The transformed Earth vessels now resembled nothing in Imperial records. Their surfaces rippled with patterns that hurt to look at, suggesting geometries that shouldn't exist in normal space. All ships, retreat. Admiral Ta Jin's order came too late. The humans had turned space itself into their weapon, and the mighty Imperial fleet found itself trapped in bubbles of altered reality. Captain Du Yun slumped in her command chair, watching helplessly as her advanced warship became little more than a floating sculpture. The humans hadn't just defeated them. They'd rendered Imperial technology meaningless. Another message from Earth, the communications officer whispered. The words appeared, still casual, still almost friendly. Now then, about that trade discussion. The Empire's opening moves had become their first lesson in humility. As Du Yun stared at her powerless ship's displays, she realized that everything they thought they knew about technology, about physics, about their place in the universe, it was all wrong. And the humans, it seemed, had known this all along. Science Officer Yu Jin had barely slept in 3 days. The data from the human ships consumed her every waking moment. In the main laboratory of the Imperial flagship, surrounded by floating holographic displays and quantum analyzers, she finally understood what they were facing. Her hands trembled as she entered the command center, clutching her data tablet like a lifeline. The room fell silent as she approached Admiral Ta Jin, who stood brooding over tactical displays showing his crippled fleet. "Sir," she began, her voice barely steady, "I've completed the analysis of human technology. It's beyond anything we imagined." The Admiral turned, his face haggard from sleepless nights. "Explain." "All ships, evasive action," Admiral Ta Jin ordered, but it was useless. The probability bombs ignored normal spacetime, appearing simultaneously at multiple points around their targets. Captain Haynewell's voice returned. "We're being very careful to avoid crew areas. Nobody will be harmed, but your ships will be effectively declawed if you continue this engagement." The Imperial fleet's formation broke as ships tried desperately to avoid the inevitable. Proud destroyers lost their weapon systems. Massive cruisers found themselves without engines. Command ships suddenly lacked communication arrays. "Sir," Jai Yun reported, "we're losing combat capability across the fleet. The humans are systematically disarming us without firing a single conventional shot." Admiral Ta Jin watched helplessly as his mighty fleet was reduced to floating hulks. The humans weren't just winning. They were doing so with surgical precision and obvious restraint. "Message from Earth Command," the communications officer announced. They say they're willing to pretend this never happened if we're ready to start over. They're offering technical assistance to restore our ships once we agree to peaceful relations." The Admiral closed his eyes. 300 years of Imperial military tradition weighing against the undeniable reality before him. When he opened them, his decision was made. "All ships, stand down," he ordered. "Prepare for diplomatic engagement." As the Imperial fleet hung motionless in space, their weapons and key systems existing only in alternate timelines, Captain Haynewell's final message came through. "Wonderful choice. Now, about that coffee." The Empire's first retreat in 3 centuries wasn't marked by destruction or death, but by a lesson in humility taught with impossible precision and surprising mercy. As repair crews began assessing their altered ships, many wondered what other technological marvels these humans might share, once they finished their coffee, of course. The Imperial Palace's grand conference hall, with its towering crystal spires and floating quantum displays, had never hosted a meeting quite like this. Emperor Minho sat at one end of the ancient table, his ornate robes contrasting sharply with Captain Haynewell's simple Earth uniform. Steam rose from cups filled with what Haynewell called quantum brewed tea, a drink that existed in multiple states simultaneously until observed. The Emperor watched, fascinated, as the liquid shifted colors with each sip. "We've been watching your empire for quite some time," Haynewell explained, gesturing at a holographic display showing decades of human observation posts. "We saw your ships, studied your technology, learned your languages. We kept hoping you'd notice us and reach out peacefully." Minho's hands tightened around his cup. "All this time, you were there, watching. We established observation posts throughout Imperial space 50 years ago," Haynewell confirmed. "Your quantum detection systems were, well, let's say they were looking in the wrong dimensions." The Emperor's advisors shifted uncomfortably. Generations of Imperial scientists had prided themselves on their advanced technology, never realizing they were being studied like curious children. "But the metal ships," Minho began, "they looked so primitive." Haynewell smiled. "We wanted to see how you'd react to apparent inferiors. It was a test. One that, unfortunately, your empire failed rather spectacularly." The human captain waved a hand, and the air filled with complex equations and diagrams. Your civilization focused on energy manipulation and crystalline technology. Impressive, but limited. We took a different path. Quantum engineering at the atomic level. Those primitive metal hulls. Each atom was precisely positioned to interact with higher dimensional space. Minho watched as the equations danced in the air, telling the story of two civilizations that had taken vastly different technological paths. The Empire had climbed a tall mountain, believing they'd reached the peak of possibility. The humans had simply stepped sideways into another reality. "We really just wanted to be friends," Haynul said softly. "All this could have been avoided with a simple, peaceful greeting." The Emperor nodded slowly, understanding the cosmic joke that had played out across his galaxy. The mighty Empire, convinced of its superiority, had been like children playing with toys, while the adults watched patiently from the shadows. "What happens now?" Minho asked. Yu-Jin activated her tablet, projecting a complex series of equations into the air. "Their ships aren't just metal. The atomic structure has been altered at the quantum level. They're not using conventional propulsion or weapons. They're manipulating quantum fields we didn't even know existed." Around the command center, officers stopped their work to listen. The implications were staggering. "Look here," Yu-Jin continued, highlighting sections of data. "When we fire at them, our weapons aren't passing through holograms. The humans are literally shifting their ships between quantum states. They exist in multiple realities simultaneously." A low murmur spread through the room. Admiral Ta-Jin's expression darkened. "How is this possible? Their technology appeared primitive." "That's just it, sir." Yu-Jin's voice grew stronger as she explained. "The metal hulls aren't primitive. They're perfect. Each atom is precisely arranged to interact with quantum fields we never detected. Our own ships, with all their advanced crystals and energy matrices, are crude by comparison." As if to emphasize her point, the main display showed another Earth ship passing effortlessly through an Imperial cruiser's strongest shields. The human vessel's hull rippled with impossible patterns as it moved, like space itself was bending around it. "Their technology isn't just more advanced," Yu-Jin continued. "It operates on principles we don't understand. Our scientists have been studying the wrong things for centuries." She paused, then added quietly, "Sir, I believe they've been watching us for a long time, waiting to see if we figure it out on our own." Admiral Ta-Jin stared at the equations floating before him. A lifetime of imperial superiority crumbled in the face of undeniable evidence. "Can we adapt our technology to counter theirs?" Yu-Jin shook her head. "It would be like trying to fight a quantum computer with stone tools. The gap is too wide." She hesitated, then added, "There's something else. The humans aren't using their full capabilities. These ships, I believe they're their equivalent of training vessels." The command center fell completely silent. The mighty Imperial fleet, terror of the galaxy, had been defeated by human training ships. "Message from Earth," announced the communications officer. The words appeared on every screen. "Your science officer is quite clever. Would she like to discuss quantum mechanics over that coffee we offered?" Yu-Jin looked at Admiral Ta-Jin, hope mixing with professional curiosity in her eyes. The Admiral nodded slowly, finally understanding that the Empire's only path forward lay in humility and learning. "Tell them," he said quietly, "that we would be honored to learn." After a pause, he added, "And ask them how they take their coffee." The revelation was complete. The Empire hadn't just met a new species, they had encountered their new teachers. The quiet of space shattered as Captain Haynul's voice echoed through every Imperial communication channel. "We tried to be polite. Really did." There was genuine regret in those words, but also steel-hard determination. The remaining Imperial fleet, 37 ships of the original 50, held formation around Admiral Ta-Jin's flagship. Their crystalline hulls showed battle damage, something no one in living memory had seen before. "Last warning," Haynul continued. Stand down and let's discuss this like reasonable beings. Nobody needs to get hurt today. Admiral Ta Jin gripped his command rail, pride warring with reason. The Empire does not surrender, he declared, but his voice lacked its usual conviction. Very well. Haynul's sigh carried clearly through the channels. Deploying probability bombs. Please note these are set to minimum disruption. The term meant nothing to Imperial forces until they saw it in action. Spheres of distorted space emerged from the human vessels, drifting lazily toward the Imperial fleet. Where they touched, portions of ships simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not damaged, just gone, as if they had never been there. Sir, Captain Jai-Yun's voice cracked with panic. They're deleting segments of our ships from reality. The missing sections aren't registering on any quantum level. A cruiser to their port side lost its entire weapons array, the space where it had been now perfectly smooth, as if the ship had been designed that way. Another vessel lost its engine core, but somehow remained operational. The humans were choosing exactly what to remove. Fascinating application of quantum probability manipulation, Science Officer Yu Jin muttered, still taking readings. They're not destroying the matter. They're shifting it to alternate timelines, where those components were never installed. Now, Haynul's eyes sparkled. Now we teach each other. You have much to learn about quantum mechanics, and we're quite interested in your crystalline technology. Together, we might discover things neither of us has imagined. The Emperor looked around his grand hall, seeing it with new eyes. The floating displays, the quantum cores, the technology he'd been so proud of. All of it suddenly seemed quaint. Shall we start over? Haynul extended a hand, the human gesture of friendship somehow more meaningful than any Imperial protocol. Minho took the offered hand, feeling the weight of history shifting around them. Yes, he said simply. Let's begin again. As they shook hands, the quantum brewed tea in their cups settled into a single brilliant color, a perfect blend of Earth and Imperial science, a symbol of what was to come. The Empire hadn't fallen that day. Instead, it had grown up, finally ready to join a larger universe where they weren't the most advanced civilization, just one of many in a cosmos far more wonderful and strange than they had ever imagined. And it all started with a cup of impossible tea and the humility to learn.